r/AskReddit. What was your oh shit, I'm the bad guy moment? I blew a Tic Tac through a straw into an old guy's face who was working at a car park booth when I was about 12 and still feel terrible about it a decade and a half later. I was screaming at my nephew a lot when he did something bad. I realized I was flying off the handle when I didn't need to be. When a calm talk would work better and not upset him or make him feel so bad. And I realized it wasn't just that he was being super bad, just a bit naughty and kids and robots. I haven't screamed since the night I realized it, and while I may raise my voice I keep that to a minimum and collect myself and calmly discuss things with him as much as possible. I still feel really guilty, but I'm trying to be better to him and so far it's been going well. So when I was a neckbeard loser, I tried asking out this girl. She was hot but she was also in a wheelchair. I remember thinking how awesome it would be asking her out. Since I figured not too many dudes would put up with a woman in a wheelchair. She would be just so thankful for me because I'm such a good guy to look past her insecurities. So of course, I asked her out and she rejected me. At first, I was mad. I couldn't believe a lady in a wheelchair wouldn't go out with me. Like, who did she think she was? She couldn't even walk. But then, I realized I was being a jackass. I thought her being in a wheelchair would bring her down to my level, but the truth was, she was still an awesome person that shouldn't be taking scraps just because she couldn't walk. I was the condescending prick who was looking down on her. It was a wake-up call for myself and how I thought of women. It wasn't easy. Had to do some self-reflecting. Found out I had no good qualities any lady wanted to date and had to work on myself. I'm not perfect. Still catch myself in toxic thought. But I'd like to think I've improved. Got a wife and she seems happy, so there's that at least. A guy was following me down the highway as I left my college's parking lot, night class, and he kept honking, flashing his brights, and tailgating me, so I gave him the finger about 4 separate ways. He pulled up next to me and I even mimed looking around inside my bag for something before pulling out a middle finger. I opened the glove box and pulled out a middle finger. I went all out. Guess whose headlights weren't on? I was in Tijuana drinking it up and this was in the 90s. I left a bar and when I made it outside, I realized that I left my wallet on the table. I went back in and saw that different people were there and no wallet. I asked them if they found a wallet and all said no. I got more aggressive with them and started to threaten them if they didn't return the wallet. I was a big guy in those days and I could tell they were scared. By this time, the bouncer is noticing and I recognize that I'd likely get thrown out soon. So I told them that I'd be waiting for them outside and would beat their asses. I went outside and was looking in to scare them, and plus I was pissed. I then reached in my shirt pocket because I felt something there. Sure enough, my wallet was in there. Felt like such an ass and still feel like an ass when I think of it. This goes back to my first real girlfriend when we were 15. We were on and off for 3 years all throughout high school. She'd had a reputation for being crazy because she punched a boyfriend she had before me. All the bros warned me not to date her. I did anyway. But, in true teenage douchebag fashion, we went through periods where I would hide our relationship because she was crazy and I didn't want to have a public relationship with her. In retrospect, she was an absolute sweetheart. Any crazy behavior from her was absolutely a reaction to how douchey guys treated her. 100% including me. She was a catch. I was an utter peanut butter and arsehole sandwich to her. I still feel bad about it. We're still casual acquaintances today, but I really don't know how to apologize for how I acted 20 years ago. I feel like the statute of limitations has expired and it would be super awkward now. Once playing snowball, my friend ducked to dodge my shot and I perfectly headshot an old woman. Edit. Typo. When I asked my mom to put me up for adoption, I was around 6. I realized how shitty that was when I was 22. I still regret it till this day. 30. Edit. For those interested in the context, my father promised something some time before and I asked about it. He denied ever making that promise, so I pushed on and said that he did. He got mad at me for insinuating that he was a liar and smacked me across the face. He then kind of forced me to go to the backyard and pick any bamboo stick from the hedge. This is the usual form of punishment. I had to come back with it and give it to him and lie down on the floor, face down, and give him a number depending on the severity of my transgressions, usually 3+. The next thing is kind of obvious. I remember that I felt so unfairly treated that I went to my mom so she could comfort me, and that's where I kind of begged her to put me up for adoption. I didn't really mean that I didn't want my mom in my life. I just wanted to get away from my dad. They divorced while I was in boarding school, around 14. I lived with my mom and she and I have never been happier. She is without a doubt my best friend. BTW. Asian household. I was a dumb teenager once. My sister was telling me that one of our neighbors was gay. Being the dumbass I was, wanting some cheap attention from rumor mongering, I tried to spread it to a friend. She went up to him that moment and ratted me out. Turns out, my sister was mad at him because he refused her advances. I learned a thing, I guess. Once while working as a line cook in a restaurant, a co-worker said something to me. I don't remember what, but I do know it wasn't anything bad, and for pretty much no reason at all I smacked him in the side of the face with a raw, marinated chicken breast. I dunno. I guess I thought it would be funny. Pretty much immediately I realized I did not live in the Monty Python universe, and hitting people with raw chicken, especially for no reason, was generally an arsehole thing to do. It sort of worked out though. Karma came around a couple weeks later when, through a series of unlikely events, I ended up having an entire chocolate cake fall on my head. Still covered in chunks of cake and icing, I immediately sought out co-worker and asked him if we were even. He almost pissed himself laughing and we actually became work friends. Wasn't paying attention while driving and blew through a red light yesterday. Clipped an SUV. Airbags didn't even deploy. No one is hurt. Already accepted I was a shithead idiot. And then I see the occupants of the other car tending to the baby girl in the back seat. I've never felt so lucky and hollow in my life. I could have killed a baby or her father on Father's Day. Thankfully no one is hurt at all. Thankfully they had everything to keep their child safe from idiots like me. They were surprisingly calm about it. I won't be driving for a while. And when I do, it's grandma driving for me. I hope they forgive me. One time I got pissed because I overheard my parents who adopted me talking about going on a trip to the beach. They both knew I had never been. Told my mom how disappointed and pissed I was. Turns out they were planning a surprise trip for me to go to the beach. I felt so bad. Had a co-worker come in with a really amateur and shitty attempt at a mohawk. And we'd been really close before, so I just straight up said my mind. Dude, your hair looks like shit. Turns out he had gone to 3 barbers because it just kept getting worse and worse, and he genuinely got upset, and the next day he just shaved his entire head. Sorry Duke. One guy I dated, I went out of my way to do everything perfectly. To an obsessive level. From dates to small talk, cuddling, social interactions with his friends, and supporting him in any way I could. It was only after we broke up that I realized I wasn't going the extra mile because I cared, but because I had a deep-seated need to prove I was the superior one in the relationship. It was then, in fact, I realized I was the baddie. Edit. Spelling. Reading a lot of my emails and messages from when I was younger. In first grade a kid fell on my lap and I got pissed and pushed him off me in confusion. Turned out he was having a seizure. I feel really bad to this day. I was 6. I'm currently 19. So I was helping a teacher as we were out in the halls and my friend stole my stuff and ran around a corner. As I went running after, I yelled, "Stop being retarded." Around that corner was the special ed class and their teacher. I have never been more mortified and felt like such an asshole. Every time I argue with my parents I always realize a day after or so that I was the bad guy. I was driving home one day and a guy was very slowly crossing the road in his truck in front of me, so I blared my horn at him and gave him a dirty look. It took me about another 200 feet before I realized he was turning into the gas station and ran out of gas. It was too late for me to help him push his car out of traffic too. I still think about it to this day, and that was probably 2 years ago. Girlfriend bought candy for trick-or-treaters 2 weeks before Halloween. Over the next 2 weeks I ate almost all of the candy. We had to give out Asian candy with flavors most kids around here wouldn't have heard of. Like purple yam, calamansi, and tamarind. I have this bad habit of pushing people into finishing arguments instead of letting them take time to cool off. Because it makes me feel better. Every time. After it then spirals uncontrollably into a screaming match. I know I'm definitely the arsehole even if it didn't start out that way. People stopped liking me at the strip club I worked at and would ignore me. I was pissed because it was people that usually talked to me. Realized when I would get blackout drunk I said really insulting shit to everyone and even got into fights I don't really remember. I ended up getting banned from that particular club. After being a bit of a tearaway and trying to get my shit together in school I told off a kid for wearing a hat that the school uniform didn't allow. I later learned he was wearing the hat because he'd lost his hair to chemo. Did not feel good. Edit. For some context. This was in a UK secondary with a blazer and trousers style uniform. When I got sober. One time in high school I threw a piece of chocolate on my friend's chair right when he sat down. He didn't notice. The chocolate melted and got all over the back of his pants. It looked like he had pooped his pants. He was kind of upset when he stood up. Yeah. I was a douche and I feel bad that I did that. I never did make friends at the military. Was there for 3 years after high school. I always thought they were bad people because they never invited me to anything. We didn't talk much. They always ghosted me. But you know the saying if you meet an asshole. They are an asshole. If you only meet a bunch of assholes. Then you are the asshole is very true. As I get older. I feel that way about most of the fun I had as an adolescent and teenager. Playing soccer in the middle of the street at 1 AM. Playing home run derby on a little league field despite houses being behind the outfield fence. It goes on. In 4th grade one of my friends confessed to me and I laughed him out in front of everyone. I feel so bad because I probably fucked up his self-esteem. So Felix if you see this. I'm incredibly sorry. In like 6th grade a little too old to do this I threw a frog on the cement at a birthday party for the shock factor. It's been over a decade and I think about it multiple times a week. That frog didn't deserve it. What if I run for office someday and an old friend is like vote for him. He is a psycho who kills frogs for fun. This is mild in comparison to some of these but. My boyfriend and I were studying at the library during exam time and he got up to go to the coffee shop to get a drink and a donut. He sat back down and ate his donut over the span of a couple of minutes and I just sat there and waited for him to offer me a piece. The way I would certainly offer him one. He didn't and it was done and I got pretty annoyed with him and what I perceived to be a lack of generosity kindness. I sulked about it and it caused a small argument and I only realized I fucked up when I told my therapist about the situation and she just asked. And how did you expect him to know you wanted any of his donut? Hence. Are we the baddies? I ghosted several boys who were into me because I knew that I was insane. As in. Spent 11 days in a psychiatric hospital insane. Abusive insane. Psychotic delusions insane. I got close to them because I genuinely liked them and wanted an honest relationship. But at 17 years old I was so unhealthy mentally. I ghosted them because I knew I would be the crazy girlfriend if things continued. I should have told them the truth and went on my way getting better. But I ghosted them because I was too much of a coward to admit that I was just too unhealthy to continue forming a relationship. Even though that was all I ever wanted. They probably think I didn't like them. Or they weren't attractive enough. I hate that they think that. In reality, I wasn't good enough. I just was too crazy. When the DM had to tell me I could either leave or knock off my behavior. I teach middle school. So I end up having to play the villain a lot. But one time stands out where I actually was the bad guy. Last block of the day. We're working through something that is not terribly interesting. I hear a few whispers and giggles and my teacher sense goes off. Out of the corner of my eye I see that a note is being passed around the class and that's what's causing the distraction. I muster up my best stern teacher face and boom, put that in your backpack or I'm going to have to take it. Someone had found out it was my birthday. They made me a lovely card and were all signing it D. Just last week I got a tattoo and this guy on the train was eyeing me and making faces at me. I thought he was being creepy and hitting on me, so I rolled my eyes at him and he looked confused and insulted. Then I realized he was just trying to tell me he liked the tattoo. I was bored and saw a window on a building and hoisted my friend to look through it. Cops saw us and got really pissed and yelled at me and my friend. I thought he was being a prick. Next day I saw the girls' bathroom sign. When I made someone spill milk all over themselves and enjoyed every second of it. I was playing Fable II when I was 12. Played the whole game as evil as I could. Spent most of the time wandering around. Murdering absolutely everybody in sight. Had massive orgies in game. Then murdered everyone. Ramped up the prices on every house to ludicrous extremes. The whole works. One day when I was playing, there was a beggar on the streets begging for money. I was literally stifling laughs as I went to the gun shop in game. Bought a brand new gun. Just to shoot him in the face. At the time I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. Not seeing it so funny now. Years ago I was left as acting general manager on New Year's Day at the restaurant I was working at. Customers were high maintenance and pissy. Employees were bitter to be working and less than productive. After telling the kitchen to turn down their music, stop horsing around, and cussing loud enough for everyone in the dining room to hear for the 100th time, I was a little short-fused. About 2 hours into our morning service, someone from the kitchen yelled so loud everyone in the dining room jumped. I stomped into the kitchen breathing fire only to be stopped cold in my tracks by one of the prep cooks holding the bloody detached tip of his right index finger in his left hand. After I kicked someone in the balls to get attention from others and I realized what I had done. About 30 minutes into every argument, Billie Eilish entered the conversation. In high school at lunch one day a friend of mine made an honest mistake of spilling half of his carton of milk on me when he was walking past to find his seat. He apologized. But I was so mad about it that I took my near empty carton and started flinging it on the back of his shirt as he was eating. He got mad at me and repeated that he was sorry and it was a mistake. I felt bad about it afterwards. So, I was driving my car into a roundabout. Doing nothing wrong. Not cutting up any other drivers. Driving at a safe, slow speed. And suddenly honk. From another driver. I look up and there is a taxi about to join the roundabout and the driver staring straight at me. FFS. I think. These guys think they own the road. Now you're not even allowed to enter the roundabout when they want to. In my own defense, I was having a bad day so I did something I would never normally do. I slowed my car down to a crawl and gave him the finger, maintaining eye contact for several seconds, turning to look over my shoulder at him so as to keep up the finger and the eye contact for as long as possible. The look of astonishment on his face at getting the finger from this respectably dressed woman was priceless. As I exited the roundabout, honk, again. But this time I realized the sound had been from a commercial playing on the car radio. It must be tough being a taxi driver. Edit. TY so much for the bling. I went to the movies with some friends when I was 13. Instead of us being the typical annoying loud teenagers, there were some loud women sitting in the row ahead. I didn't hear the women, but my friend pointed them out and complained to me. In retaliation, I threw a handful of popcorn at the women and cackled like a mad woman. Turns out I misread where my friend was pointing, and I didn't hit the annoying loud women. I hit two quiet old ladies. I felt like such an asshole. I was out of town and I went into a frozen yogurt place I'd never seen before with so many flavors. I kept asking for sample cups until I'd tried like 20 of them and was only halfway. It was amazingly fun. I heard a parent giving a lecture to their kids who wanted to copy me about how we don't act like that man and buy ours. That just ruined it for me. So I dropped a $10 in their tip jar and left. Heard someone calling my friend Richard Dick without knowing Dick was a nickname, so I got all defensive. Then I realized I was being a jackass. Well, yesterday I was on a 100 road and a cattle truck was going 60. I got pissed off and flashed my lights at him and he put his indicator on and slowed down as we were approaching a turnoff. I thought yes he's going, I can get in front of him now, but he instead drove back onto the road and continued going 60, so I flashed my lights again and he put the blinker on again. We repeated this 4 times before I realized he was trying to let me go past him. If you want to get nothing in return, you can like and join my Discord. There is a link in the description.